The first sound I heard on the line wasn't even a voice. It was breathing. Shaky, uneven breathing. The kind that only comes when someone is terrified but trying desperately not to make a sound. For a moment, I thought maybe the line was dead, and then, just barely above a whisper, came the words, "Please, help me. They're in my house." Every muscle in my body tightened. In this job, you learn quickly which calls are real and which aren't. And this one was real. I asked her name, but her voice cracked as she whispered that she couldn't talk loudly. She was hiding inside a closet, clutching her phone so tightly I could hear the tremble in her hand against the receiver. She told me she lived. He alone. Tonight, she had just come home from work, made herself dinner, and was about to go to bed when she heard it, the sound of footsteps upstairs. At first, she told herself it was nothing. Maybe the house settling, maybe her imagination. But then she saw it. A shadow, moving across the crack under her bedroom door. That's when she ran and hid in the closet, phone in hand, and called us. I gave her clear instructions. Don't hang up, stay as quiet as possible, and keep me updated if she heard anything. Every few seconds, her whispers came through the line, each word more fragile than the last. She kept saying, "They're moving. They're upstairs. I can hear them." While I stayed on the line, my partner was already tracing the call. Suburban neighborhood. Small street with cookie-cutter houses, only a few minutes away from us. But when you're listening to someone whisper for their life, minutes feel like hours. We jumped into the cruiser and tore through the streets. The sirens cut through the silence of the night, but my mind was locked on her voice. I kept replaying it in my head, the raw fear, the shaking breath. This wasn't just another call. This was a woman moments away from disaster. Before we go further, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more real-life rescue stories like this one. As we turned into her neighborhood, I killed the sirens. Darkness settled back over the street. The kind of darkness that feels too still, too quiet. Her house came into view. At first, it looked ordinary, like every other home on the block. But then I noticed it. The front door. It wasn't shut. It was hanging slightly open, just swaying with the night breeze. We moved in quietly, weapons drawn, flashlights ready. The air was colder inside the house, heavy, almost suffocating. Family photos lined the walls. A jacket was tossed over the back of a chair. Everything looked so normal, and yet the silence screamed that something was wrong. Then we heard it. Footsteps above us. Slow, deliberate. Someone was moving upstairs. I whispered into the phone, "We're inside. Stay hidden. Don't make a sound." We searched the downstairs first, clearing each room, every corner. Nothing. And then, following her whispered directions, we found her. Huddled inside the hallway, closet, clutching the phone like it was her lifeline. Her eyes were wide with terror, her face streaked with tears. She almost screamed when she saw the flashlight beam, but I pressed a finger to my lips. She pointed upstairs with a trembling hand. That was all we needed. We began up the staircase, each step creaking under our boots, each sound amplified in the stillness. My flashlight cut across framed family photos on the wall, smiling faces frozen in happier times. It was such a stark contrast to the dread filling the house now. Then we saw him. At the far end of the hallway, a figure stepped into view. Tall, masked, standing perfectly still until my flashlight beam locked onto him. For a second, it felt like time itself froze. "Police! Don't move!" I shouted. He flinched, then froze again. My partner and I advanced, weapons drawn. Slowly, reluctantly, he raised his hands into the air. His plan was over. We moved in fast, cuffed him, and patted him down. No weapons on him, but later we'd find out he had been stalking the neighborhood, scoping houses for break-ins. Tonight, he thought he had found the perfect target. He didn't know she would make that call. He didn't know we'd arrive so fast. When we brought him downstairs, the woman stepped out of her hiding place. Her body shook so hard she could barely stand. Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't just from fear anymore. They were from relief. She kept whispering "thank you," over and over, like she couldn't believe it was really over. Outside, the flashing red and blue lights painted the street. Neighbors peeked through curtains, some even stepping out in shock at the scene unfolding in front of them. We guided the intruder into the patrol car. His head hung low, his wrists locked, in steel. The woman stood at her doorway, wrapped in a blanket one of the paramedics had given her, watching as the car pulled away. For her, the nightmare was finally ending. Driving back to the station, I couldn't get her whisper out of my head. That first sound of breathing, that single desperate call for help, and it hit me. Sometimes one phone call is the only line between fear and safety, between a tragedy and a rescue. And on that night, her whisper into the phone made all the difference. If you want to hear more true stories of real-life rescues and moments that could change everything in an instant, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss the next one.